In this video, we will review Unit 2 for Latin for Americans. In this unit, we learned the future tense for the first and second conjugations. The future tense is used to denote that an action that will happen in the future. And for the first and second conjugations, this is used the tense sign bi. Notice the differences in the first person singular, the I is dropped and it's just O, bo, and in the third person plural, the I is substituted for a U. So, spectababimus is we shall look at the waves. Monstrabo is I will point out. And laudabunt is they will praise. The future tense is formed for the first two conjugations by taking the first principal part and the stem vowel. And in this case, for the first conjugation, the stem vowel is A, and it will be A for all first conjugation verbs. And then you add the endings bo, bis, bit, bimus, bitus, bunt. The future can be translated in Latin with the helping verb shall or will. Notice that our endings of the verbs o, s, t, mus, tis, and nt are the same as they are for the present tense. In Latin, verbs also have moods. We mostly deal with the indicative mood when we talked about the present and the future tense. There's now the imperative mood. The imperative is something that must be done, so it's used to give commands. So the imperative is formed by adding an A to the present tense, just the stem vowel for the singular, seize the province, and making it plural. If I'm telling multiple people to seize Rome, I'll add the ate. So occupa is seize, singular, occupate is seize, plural. Now we're going to transition back to nouns. And now we're going to learn another case for the nouns. That is the genitive case. We've already learned the nominative for the subject, the accusative for the direct object, and now we're going to learn the genitive. The genitive is used to make one noun modify another, and its most important use is possession. And so, for example, in Uriam pueri, so it's the injury of the boy or the boy's injury. Notice how there's two ways to translate it. You can translate it using the English preposition of, but notice that that is not shown up in Latin, it's just implied in Latin. Or you could use the apostrophe s, the boy's injury. And again, the plural, memoria agricolarum, the memory of the farmers. And so again, there's using the English preposition of, or, for since it's plural, it's apostrophe s. The genitive case does not need to agree with the noun that it's modifying. It's completely separate. Another use of the genitive is part of the whole. So for example, it could be supply of water. But I wouldn't worry too much about this because, again, you understand the meaning in English, and it is also uses the English preposition of, same as it does for possession. So here's some more examples of ways to translate possession in English. Again, either with the preposition of, or the apostrophe s, or s apostrophe. So in Latin, possession is shown by the case endings. And for the first declension, it's ae for the singular and arum for the plural, for roads or roads, depending on where the apostrophe s is. And for the second declension, it's I or orum. So, of the slave or of the slaves. The next case we're going to learn is the dative case. The dative case is used for indirect objects. Often verbs of giving, showing, telling, or entrusting will have an indirect object. In English, you can translate this with the prepositions to or for. But in Latin, these prepositions are not used with the dative case. So it's just in the dative. You won't have a preposition in Latin, but you can insert that preposition in English. So an example, I shall give money to the girl. To the girl is the indirect object. It's the person whom is receiving the money. Notice in English, I use the preposition to translate it, but there was no preposition in Latin. I can also translate this in English as, I shall give the girl money. So there are many ways to use the preposition to in English, and so let's not get confused. When I say something like, he went to the city, this is the accusative case with the preposition ad. This is not the indirect object. This is showing motion and direction. In the second example, he told his officer he's told his story to the officer and showed him his driver's license. Here, to is operating as an indirect object for the noun officer. That is the indirect object because he's telling his story, a verb of giving, showing, or telling. So this would be a dative of indirect object. So this is a common mistake when going from English to Latin. The next case we're going to learn is the ablative case. This is often used for the object of a preposition for specific prepositions like cum, which means with, ob, which means by or away from, in, which means in or on, ex, out of, de is down from or about. The ablative case can also be used without a preposition in Latin, but will be translated with the prepositions with, by, in, or from in English. So our endings in Latin for the first conjugation, or first declension, is a with the macron, and I usually don't care if you write the macron or not, but if you're translating from Latin to English, it's a good little hint, and is for the plural. And for the second declension, it will be o and is as well. A special use of the ablative is called the ablative of means. The ablative of means is used to express the means or an instruments by which something is done. In Latin, this does not have a preposition, but in English, we'll use the preposition either by or with. So for example, no preposition here in Latin, but they report the victory by means of a letter or by a letter. It tells you by what instrument the victory is reported. The next one is, again, no preposition, is he will stir up the soldiers with booty. And so again, this is the means or the instrument by how he is stirring up the soldiers. So this is an ablative of means. No preposition in Latin, but can be translated with or by in English. So a quick case review. The subject is always in the nominative case in Latin. And also we have a nominative case in English. The possessive is in the genitive case. Indirect object is a dative case. The direct object would be the accusative case. And various uses for the ablative with or without a preposition. And here's another way to look at our endings. So for the nominative, you're going to use the endings a, ae, us, and I, depending on the person and number and declension of the noun. And again, subject and predicate nominative. Genitives are ae, aurum, I, aurum for the possessive. Datives are ae, is, o, is for the indirect object. Accusative is am, as, os for direct objects. And the ablative would be a, is, o, is for means and other objects of the preposition. This slide shows noun-adjective agreement. And so in the first one, the first declension, you have wea, noa. Wea is a feminine noun, and therefore you will use the first declension to decline the adjective. So a, ae, am, ae, arum, is, os, is. And over here, the second declension, which is equus, which is masculine, so you use the second declension for the adjective to decline. And it would be us, I, o, I, aurum, is, os, is. Now, nata is a word of the first declension, but nata is masculine. And so since nata is masculine, you'll use the second declension for the adjective. So the endings are not the same in this case. So again, adjectives agree in case, number, and gender, not declension. So bonus has to match nata in gender. And anytime you have a masculine noun, you use the second declension to decline the adjective. And so although nata is ae, am, ae, aurum, is, os, is, bonus will be us, I, o, I, aurum, is, os, is. Here's a quick list of the nouns that we learned. Notice that the nouns that end in a are usually followed by ae and are feminine in gender. The one major exception is nata. Remember in the Unit 1 we learned agricola. Those are two nouns in the first declension that are masculine. Again, most of them are feminine. And as you notice here, the us will be I, masculine, and all the nouns here that end in I or us will have I, masculine. And remember, this I and this ae don't represent the plural, they represent the genitive singular. Adjectives, remember, end in us, a, This US is used for masculine, and for masculine nouns you'll decline these adjectives with using the second declension. The A is for feminine and will follow the first declension, and again it follows the noun that is modified. And this UM is neuter, and we'll learn the neuter, but you will use this pattern when an adjective modifies a neuter noun. Here's a list of verbs you learned, and again these are all part of the first conjugation, and they'll all have the remaining principal parts of are, awe, and atus. This will change when we learn verbs of different conjugation. And here are adverbs that we learned: cross, tomorrow, pine and almost, semper, always, tum and then, and then a preposition. Odd, and notice here it says accusative. So this means to, towards, or near, and the object of this preposition will be in the accusative case.